I'd make this video to help you when you're revising, and also just to give you a little bit more information on Anne Bogart. So Anne Bogart is a physical theatre practitioner. She created the viewpoints for movement for acting, adapted from the viewpoints of dance that were already created previously. She wanted a language to talk about the way that we move in theatre, and that was what she set out to do with the viewpoints. One of her foundational principles is the ensemble. So the idea that there's not one director who just tells you what to do, where to go, what to say and when to say it. It's an ensemble, which means everyone kind of has a part in the creative process. Everyone has something to contribute, everyone has something to say, and you can give your opinion as an actor, and it's everyone working together. There's not really that huge black and white line between like the authoritative like with Suzuki or Stanislavski, who was like do this and gives orders, and actors do what you want as the director. It's everyone working together and kind of giving ideas. So the director might be like, let's try this, and then you guys come up with ideas and improvise, and it's like, oh cool, what did we think about this? So ensemble, and leading into that example, improvisation. So the director might say, let's have a look at this theme, let's improvise around that, and then the actors, because they're generating the ideas, they are ensemble members and they come up with improvisations to do with that. So that could be also to get them out of their heads. So the improvisation is to help the actors get out of their heads and just move, and also to create that ensemble. Soft focus is another one that she uses a lot. So soft focus is the idea that you have to always be aware of everything around you, like focus on what you're doing, but like make sure your peripheral vision is engaged, because you're doing a lot of walking around the room kind of exercises, so make sure that you're kind of alert and aware of everything around you, but focusing on what you're doing, obviously, still. Exquisite pressure is the next one I'll talk about, which is what she uses. It's called, like, it's where the pressure of time. So she'll be like, okay, come up with this scene, you have only 5 minutes to do it. So it kind of, it's called the exquisite pressure because it like forces you to just do. Like, you can't just talk and sit and talk about your ideas for 20 minutes. And that's why I tell you guys to like, come on, get up, start practicing, like you've had enough talking. Because when you only have that amount of time, you have no choice but to just start like just doing it, and then being like, yep, that works, that doesn't, and just keep going, and then you refine it later, so you don't have time to think. Also the use of extremes with, like, for example, spatial relationships. She doesn't want you to be that middle kind of distance. That's not very visually interesting for an audience. It's either really close or really far away. So when you're doing that's, or if with tempos, for example, as well, like either really fast or really slow, that kind of middle where you're walking just at a normal speed, you want to avoid that. So you want to avoid the middle, and that's what she kind of likes. So that's extremes. Now the tools that she uses a lot, she uses music. So she always she could play music over the top of a piece that you've improvised, and like see what kind of effect that has if you put it with music, like, oh, suddenly it feels different. Or even she'll put on music, and then while you're improvising, you have to take the music into consideration. So for example, like, you know, you might have been doing an action, but suddenly with this music you're slowing it down. Sorry, thought some students were wagging, it's fine, they're teachers. So using music in that way, and there's I like the way that she uses music. I'd like to kind of do that a bit more with you guys. And then lastly, the grid. So that's kind of a floor pattern where it's literally just a grid. So she'll say often like move along the grid, because you can, like, you know, you tend to walk there and then walk that way in that grid-like pattern, like pretend you're just following along your own grid line, to make it, like, to stop, I mean, obviously from getting dizzy when you're going around and around the circle, but so that you don't have to think about where you're moving. You're just moving, like, with purpose to the other end of the grid, and then you turn and walk in a different direction on the grid. But that way you're not like just kind of wandering, and then you have to use brain power to decide where you're going to move and all that sort of stuff. Like, you know where everyone else is moving because of soft focus, and you know where you're going because of the grid. The other example of her idea that you don't want to think too much when you're doing is the way the ensemble works. So it would be the director suggesting like questions and ideas for the ensemble to explore on stage, right? But you're not actually, when you're on stage doing the work, you're not thinking and analysing it and being like, how is this going to be reinterpreted by an audience? You're just improvising and doing it. And it's the observers, so the directors or maybe the actors who aren't on stage at the moment, it's their job to like take notes and see what reoccurs, to kind of get ideas of what's popping up a lot, or it's their job to kind of interpret how oh, that looks interesting, like that could be visually interesting for an audience, or that could mean something to an audience, or that means something to me. So it's that like different interpretation comes from the viewing, and so either they can suggest things for them to do or change on stage, or the actors would often come off, look at what's happening on stage, and then go on and do something. So that's why, for example, it could be strength, like I could say something as a director like, let's try and strengthen the spatial relationship there, and you would have the spatial relationship, whatever you're doing, you would probably do what she calls like avoid the grey zone, so that's go to the extremes of either like a lot closer or a lot further apart, make it more extreme. Or that could be something where it's more like it's bigger, or it's like there's more people on one side, or that kind of thing, but you're not really thinking about what that effect is on interpretation for the audience. So it's not like, oh, power, oh, they're looking at the character, they're looking at this thing, you're just doing it. Like, yeah, it probably does lend itself to some interpretation, but that's the job of the people who are watching, not the jobs of the actors on stage at the moment. They discuss it afterwards for sure, and they talk about how they've interpreted it as they were doing it, but it's not your main focus, because your main focus is just to do and not think. And that's the other thing about viewpoints, is that it frees you, because you're not having to think and analyze your decision and being like, would my character do this, or would we want this in our play, or would we not want this? You just do it, and then, you know, the people who are observing will tell you whether or not it should be done, or whether or not they think it has a place. Okay, that's it. I hope that was helpful. Let me know if this kind of style of delivery works for you guys. It might be helpful for you taking notes and stuff, but I don't know whether maybe written or this kind of style is easier for you to interpret and understand, or maybe both helps. I just thought I'd try and give you some extra support on these ideas that we've been looking at in class. Cool. See ya!